are trying to maintain or increase their economies on the backs of the world. And we just can't have that anymore. Now, thankfully, they're starting to realize that in each of the countries. China, Europe, India, the United States are starting to wake up and say, we gotta stop this. How can we stop this? How much carbon is produced by burning gasoline and diesel? That 19.64 pounds of carbon are produced from burning a gallon of gasoline. Look at that, 22.38 CO2 produced on diesel. Just the other day, President Obama recommended higher fuel efficiency levels for trucks. Very, very, very important. And they can be reached. And I'll tell you how we're doing it, how we're recommending it. There's just a tremendous amount of metric tons, millions and millions of metric tons could be removed from release if we're just smart about it. I want to ask you, the first great release of carbon was the atomic explosion in Hiroshima. As a first great one, where you could actually take readings in space and find carbon getting to the highest levels of our atmosphere. That was in 1945. Every day is A, B, or C, and you can just answer to yourself. Do you think there's 1,000 atomic bombs being exploded, the equivalent of that much release? 10,000 or 100,000 atomic bombs every day being exploded in our world, globally? It's none of the above. It's 346,000 every day. It's like atomic bombs are going off 4 per second. Bing, bing, bing. All over the world. That much carbon's being released. That's just not, it's not natural, they say. It's not natural. And the ecosystem cannot support that amount of carbon going into the environment. We're seeing the effects of it more rapidly than we thought. Because here's what happens. You see where the protective layer is, protective natural ozone layer? That layer is only the distance from where I stand to Highway 380. Look at how close that is. And it's receding at an extremely rapid rate. We lose that covering. And the exposure on life to very deadly rays from space will end life as we know it. So we have to do something. We have to do something. And what we're doing is this. Trying to take a reasoned approach to finding solutions. Yes, we'll work with Alliant Energy and Mid-America, and look at what Mid-America's done with wind already. Alliant has also done a lot towards this. The incumbent utilities, enhancement models and technologies, I'll be talking about hydrogen hybrid systems that hook up to coal-fired power plants and diesel and gasoline. I'll talk about those because we can do a 5 to 7 year interim conversion to where we want to be. But then there's also the completely carbon-free models. I just had a conference this afternoon. We're looking at putting a 55 megawatt power plant in the Caribbean, all hydrogen. It'll be the first one on Earth. All hydrogen. And I'll show you the demonstration of it here in a little bit. It can be done. We don't have to wait. It's just the economics of sunk cost losses that large corporations have in the existing infrastructure that we have to somehow pay for and get them incentivized to release that incumbent technology to new technologies. Now, go ahead and change out that.
I already did.
Okay. The Carbon Reduction Plan is a network that I've been involved with, created, led by China and the United States, India and Europe. Right now we've got teams in all of those locations and in Australia right now. We've got a 7-year plan for the enhanced incumbent technologies. What is that? That's the diesel, the coal-fired power plants, the gasoline. And what we're doing is we're putting hydrogen hybrids in. Now we've got technology, I'll show you in a minute, that can produce 3 liters of hydrogen from distilled water every minute. Now that's not a whole lot, but it sure can turn diesel engines into 85% reduction of air emissions and a 15% increase in fuel efficiency. So now hundreds of trucks from PepsiCo, are running all over the country on hydrogen hybrid, releasing a lot less air emissions and doing it for less, saving millions of dollars in fuel. So bringing that technology out and having it tested at places like West Virginia University and Clemson University is what we're doing. Once we get those white papers, now we're connecting with Illinois Institute of Technology. We're going to be running some projects here at the University of Iowa and Iowa State. This is today, not 10 years into the future. And this is what we have to avoid. Look at China. If you've seen before the pollution in China, well, you probably saw 2 years ago at the Olympics, it's terrible. The other day, they had to increase the level of announcement to a new color because the parts per million of air pollution was so high. Right now, the highest air pollution level that Los Angeles has hit during real bad inversion days is 50. Beijing's hitting 300 now. They're starving. We had a team over there in Zhengzhou, which is south of Beijing. They landed in Beijing and got on an earlier flight because they were coughing so heavily. They were spitting up blood by the time they got to Zhengzhou. They had to wear respirators in Zhengzhou. It's just unbelievable. And we're there to test hydrogen hybrid systems. How ironic is that? But it's the largest bus company in the world that we're testing on. Could they do a tremendous job of getting all hydrogen hybrid engines throughout the world? Yes, they could. So there's hope. It's gotten to such a bad level. It's gotten to such a bad level. You know, carbon-free economies, hydrogen economies, we sure want to start setting hydrogen economies, and probably the first hydrogen economies may well be the US Virgin Islands. That's what we're hoping. That the entire energy infrastructure could be hydrogen by 2020. That would be just, I mean, you'd have people flying in from all over the world to see how this is done. And I'll show you the makeup of how this is done. And I didn't invent it. Work teams in Michigan did, but this is what's happening. We need to stabilize wind and solar and ocean energy systems. We need energy storage that is a critical element, and we're almost there. We have to have dispatchable baseload energy so that you're just not taking energy off a wind turbine when the wind's blowing, or solar when the solar's set. We've got to have stabilizing energy storage, which we're almost there. FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, has already issued 755, which gives groups like Mid-American higher rates to buy their energy if there's sustainable, non-carbon technology energy. Thermal fuel cells are really coming a long way. We have to start processing energy with our waste. It's ridiculous. Every time I go out to the Iowa City landfill, I go, this is 4 or 5 years of energy for our city that we're burying. This is ridiculous. They can do it very environmentally compatible already. It's just making the mental change and setting the financial markets. SMOO principle. I don't know if you remember this, but in Little Abner, back in the 60s, do you remember this? And I love this because they didn't know what to do with the SMOOs. The SMOOs were, you didn't want it was kind of disgusting animal. You didn't want to have it was a cute animal, but you didn't want to have it in your home. And so these two individuals bet each other. Who could sell more SMOOs than the other? And you know how the one won? One of them won. And he sold it as a status symbol. If you could afford to have a SMOO, you were really, really rich. So SMOOs. I want sustainable energy to be that kind of dynamic. You want to start? Okay. She's doing my taping. The Stone Age did not end because they ran out of stones. The carbon, look what we're doing with fracking and high pressure, dense oil up in Canada. We're trying to eke out the last bits of carbon fuel out of Mother Earth. And it's just hard to imagine that we're stooping to that level. Prices are going to go up. But we don't even have to have prices go up. We're now getting sustainable energy technologies down to such a level. I work with Tim Dwight, if you know Tim Dwight, from here in Iowa City. And he says, now we're at parity. I can put solar anywhere if you let me. And we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court discussion now about third-party power purchase agreements here in Iowa, because Iowa and Minnesota are looking to be the two states that lead the nation in this revolution. And I'll tell you who you can write to help with that revolution. Resetting the value of carbon-free economy. We've got to have mindsets. We've got to have mindset changes. Yeah, we'll work with the incumbent, but we're going to be working with the incumbent on an enhanced incumbent technology basis. So if they're using coal, let's get some really good scrubbers on that coal. If they're using diesel, let's put hydrogen hybrid in. If they're open to anything else, let's put hydrogen in or stabilize wind and solar with storage systems. We need to allow for a smooth transition to carbon-free economies. We're not going to have a French Revolution. This country and China and India cannot afford a violent upheaval. I appreciate what everybody does on demonstrating and marching and such, and we certainly support the Great Climate March that Ed Fallon is directing. That's going to start in March in Los Angeles and have people walk right across the United States to Washington, D.C. and asking for action now against climate change. We really appreciate that. Nonviolence, education is the key to the success of this. And then allowing the technologies to be developed, tested, proven, and installed. That is going to be the key to a Canadian-type revolution. No one remembers, the big upheaval on the Canadian Revolution. It just happened seamlessly over time. Well, that's what we want, a Canadian type of revolution, not a French Revolution. They're never stable. Go with a Canadian Revolution. That's what we're calling for. Now, selected enhanced incumbent technologies, I've already mentioned that we're doing testing on hydrogen hybrid systems in China. We're doing them in California, doing them in the Caribbean. Fuel additives can help with that. Natural gas replacing coal and diesel has already begun. Propane for energy and transportation. All of these are incumbent technology changes. And we can do that in trucks as President Obama now has asked for an executive order for a higher efficiency level for trucks. We're only getting 9 miles a gallon. And you saw 22 pounds of carbons being released with every gallon. You drive down 80, Highway 80 going into Chicago. You want to do counting. Your calculator would say, error, and it's just unbelievable, the tonnage of carbon being released. Ships are worse than trucks. Trains are worse than ships. And then we've got the huge power plants. They're doing a good job here at the university. We're working with them on a number of levels to do cogeneration, energy reduction. There's some great people here at the university, going to be great models for cities and universities around the world. Selecting carbon-free technologies, we can stabilize wind and solar and ocean energy systems. I'll show you some pictures of that. Energy storage is critical because the sun doesn't shine at night, so you've got to have that storage going on. Dispatchable, baseload energy production, microgrid instead of megagrids. Right now, the Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago has the only university microgrid. They could be an island in all of Chicago. If something happened, they could power themselves. You're going to see the development of microgrids for Iowa City, one for Coralville, one for North Liberty, one for Solon, and they'll connect and share energy, but if need be, they can stand on their own with their own generation, storage, and such. Thermal fuel cells are coming to be acceptable, and then waste to energy technologies as well. If we just fail to flush, if we just not flush the toilet one time, let's say you flush your toilet 7 times during the day, if you just flushed it 6, it would have enough water saved for all of us to power the entire region of Johnson County. So don't flush 1 time a day, you have all the electricity with a hydrogen system in place. And that's the only fuel source, and there's no carbon. So that's a pretty graphic image. Yeah, that's right. Now here's the systems. This is being done in Algona, Iowa. The Hydrogen Engine Center has now perfected General Motors engines under the direction of Ted Hollinger, who's a world recognized specialist on hydrogen generation. And these are generators that can power 200 to 300 kilowatts of power based on hydrogen. So splitting the hydrogen from water, splitting water into hydrogen. Certainly electric cars will be better and better